Welcome to the 2019-20 school year. This is Brad Jadarski, the Oshkosh West Activities Coordinator, and I'll be guiding you through our 1920 Oshkosh West Coaches Meeting online presentation. For this video presentation, please be sure to have with you a copy of the OASD High School Coaches Manual. First of all, thank you for all that you do for our student athletes, parents, and athletic department. As a coach, the Oshkosh West administration values your time, sacrifice, and commitment to the Oshkosh West Wildcat Athletic Program. As a coach, there's a number of items you need to be familiar of regarding athletic training information. First, at the coaches meeting, and if you aren't able to attend, you were provided a copy of an emergency response plan. Please keep that emergency response plan with you at all times, as it contains important information for you to use in the event there is an emergency, and it helps prevent you having to think on the fly about what you should or shouldn't have to do. So as a staff, go over the plan, review it with one another, maybe assign specific duties so that in the event of an emergency, you will be able to respond accordingly. You were also emailed information from the WIAA about heat and lightning. Please be advised, if you practice and or compete outside, familiarize yourself with the heat and lightning information and be sure to follow it, as no one wants to be a coach having to answer why you were outside practicing or competing when there was lightning and or if the heat index was above a certain temperature. Remember, when in doubt, we always want to err on the side of student safety, as we are responsible for the well-being of each and every student that participates in one of our athletic programs. There's also information available on the WA website regarding nutrition. Again, that it's another resource for you to use to help educate your student athletes on the importance of proper diet when they're participating in an athletic program. Also, as a coach, it's imperative that you familiarize yourself and be aware of any pre-existing medical condition that exists with any student on your team. They should have turned in a pink emergency card to you. The parents and students are asked to write down any specific medical condition that's important that you need to be aware of. Please familiarize yourself with any student that's allergic to something. Know where their EpiPen is. Encourage them to have two, one in a locker and one with them at all times. Also be aware of any student athletes that are diabetic, that maybe have seizures, or any other medical condition. If you are unsure about how to treat a student athlete with one of those conditions, please make me aware, as we can get you trained here in the school nurse's office so that you're properly equipped to help any student athlete in any emergency situation. Also new this year, I'm extremely pleased to report that we have expanded our athletic training room and athletic trainer coverage. We previously had one athletic trainer at both Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North. This year we have 3 athletic trainers at each high school. This is a wonderful upgrade in services for you as coaches, for the student athletes and parents, as well as our Wildcat Athletic Program. Our 3 athletic trainers are Tyler Van Sistine, Travis Herring, and Dan Gary. They're 3 excellent individuals that are here to help you make sure that our student athletes are safe. And remember, coaches, athletic trainers train and coaches coach. Coaches should not try to be athletic trainers or put undue pressure or influence on a trainer to return a student athlete to practice or competition before they are physically able to return, as we want to make sure they're 100% safe when they're competing in any athletic program. A number of years ago, the Oshkosh West Athletic Department worked with our stakeholders to create a vision statement for our athletic department. That is to educate, inspire, and shape the next generation of leaders through commitment, competition, and service to the team, our school, and our community. Also, as part of our visioning process, we came up with 5 core values. Our student survey at the end of each sports season asks for student feedback on how we did regarding our core values. We ask and expect our student athletes and parents to live and breathe these core values, and we also expect any Oshkosh West coach, whether paid or volunteer, to do so as well. So regarding our core values, number 1 is do the right thing, integrity and honesty in thoughts, actions, and words. 2, strive for greatness, excellence in academics, athletics, and character. 3. Lead with the purpose, selfless commitment to team goals. 4. Promote the Wildcat culture, pride in self, team, and school. 5. Raise the bar, inspire others to be the best. Each and every paid coach is provided a copy of our vision statement, core values, as well as our Wildcat Athletic Creed that was created by our student athletes a number of years ago when we adopted our vision statement and core values. In the 2019-20 Oshkosh Area School District Athletic Handbook, or Co-Curricular Handbook, we have a number of new changes for the 1920 school year. On page 16, the district has now said that a student may not join a sport to serve a suspension after the first scheduled contest in that sport has taken place. This is to help you and us provide clear guidance for any student who is suspended for part of a season due to a code of conduct violation and wanting to serve that suspension in a sport they have not participated in the past in. Many times we have said if the coach wants to allow it, that's great, but what we found is there needs to be a reasonable amount of time a student athlete has to participate in a sport in order for them to be able to serve a suspension. The second significant change is we've added a knowingly in the presence of alcohol and or illegal drugs second violation penalty for a student who violates that section of the code more than one time. Previously, a second violation in knowingly in the presence carried the same penalty as a second violation for use, possession, or consumption, and we didn't feel that that was appropriate. We're telling parents and student athletes that we don't condone them being at parties where alcohol and or illegal drugs are present. However, we realize things do happen. And we also inform our student athletes and parents that that there is no reasonable amount of time that they can stay at a party without leaving that couldn't put them in violation of the co-curricular code of conduct. So what we tell them is if they arrive at a residence or place and they see a whole bunch of people there, they need to ask themselves, what do they think's going on? And if they think there's a party going on or something illegal going on, they should leave immediately. Call a parent, call a friend, send a text, get out of there. We also tell them if they're at somewhere and they leave to not be afraid to come forward and talk to us about what happened, as we are definitely reasonable people. And it's a lot easier for us to believe that they chose to leave when they come in and tell us versus when we call them in to the office. So, depending on if there's a self-referral or honesty referral or not, there is a less consequence for being knowingly in the presence of alcohol for a second offense than for a second offense of use, possession, or purchase. Also, we've added language that's considered to be an honesty referral. Again, this is a change based on situations that have come about during the course of the previous school years. We feel it's a good change that's going to help reward honesty. Basically, we currently have a self-referral, which is where if a student presents him or herself to the activities coordinator or another school administrator as a person who's violated the code of conduct, and the student self-admits no later than the first day after the violation has occurred, and we are not already familiar with the violation, a student gets a break. That's the self-referral. What we found in previous years is many times we're investigating an incident and a student name comes up and we feel it's important that we talk to them. And during the course of that conversation, the student says, yes, I did break the co-curricular handbook. And as such, I'm understanding that I'm going to have a consequence. Well, by those students being honest, they actually were getting caught and receiving a penalty, whereas if they would have just lied, they may not have. So we felt that rewarding honesty in that situation was important. So now we have an honesty referral, which is the following. If a student, upon a first questioning by the activities coordinator or other school administrator, provides truthful information about committing a code of conduct violation in the areas that are numbered 1 to 5 below in the handbook, which are typically use, possession, buying or selling of controlled substances, street drugs, illegal drugs, and performance-enhancing substances, drug paraphernalia. 2, use, possession, or purchase of tobacco in any form. 3, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages. 4, knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. Or 5, acts of vandalism, there is a reduction in their penalty. For this to occur, the school must be conducting an investigation and not have had a law enforcement report and or published written account and or by other factual credible means confirming the student had committed a code of conduct violation previously, and it must be upon first questioning. Again, we're trying to do the right thing and help students that are honest get a reduction in penalty for being honest. The last change is a new felony language change that was implemented by the WIAA, and it says any student charged and or convicted of a felony shall upon the filing of felony charges become ineligible for all further participation until the student has paid his or her debt to society and the courts consider the sentence served, including probation, community service. So that could be years. Also, a reminder about the district's policy. If a student is charged with a felony, the student could lose the right to participate in athletics activities and or clubs for the remainder of their high school career in the district. So we go even a step further, saying a student can lose that privilege permanently. So at this time, I'm going to ask you to have all the materials in front of you that you got either at the coaches meeting or were provided if you missed the coaches meeting, just to cover some of those. So all paid coaches, again, paid coaches must sign off on receiving the OASD Coaches Handbook. Please be sure to read the information found on that document so that you're fully aware of what the district's expectation is regarding your behavior and or conduct as a paid coach for the district. 2, coaches are responsible for all of the material found in the district's high school coaches manual. So with that, I'm going to ask you to open up the handbook now. I'm going to cover some of the more important information areas that I feel are really important to know of. The first section begins on page 11 and goes to page 14. These are the 14 duties related to negligence litigation. Again, as a coach, it's imperative that you know what these 14 duties are. We need to work together to make sure we're not putting yourself, the athletic program, or the high school in a position where we're assuming liability or negligence in the event that something would happen and the school district's named in a lawsuit. So make sure you familiarize yourself with these 14 duties. The duty to plan. Number 2, the duty to supervise. This one's extremely important. As a coach, practice starts when you get there and practice ends when you leave. Do not allow kids to be unsupervised at any point in time at practice. Don't even leave for a minute or two to go to the bathroom or go to your office without having another recognized volunteer or background checked adult coach in the area. Again, when you travel away to competitions, you should be the first one in the building before students arrive and the last one to leave after the last student has been picked up. When students are in the locker rooms, please be sure you have a coach available in the coach's office in the event there's an accident that happens in the locker room. So again, please be sure to provide supervision at all times during the course of your seasons. Number 3, duty to assess athletes' readiness for practice and competition. Athletes should not be allowed to begin practicing unless they have all the appropriate paperwork in and are cleared by me in the athletic office. 4, do you maintain safe playing conditions? If there's any unsafe situation regarding an area you practice on or a field you compete on or practice on, please let me know right away so we can address that unsafe area. 5, do you provide proper equipment? Make sure you're aware of any NFHS equipment requirements that your student athletes have to have in order to use that equipment during contests. It needs to be certified by the appropriate certifying agency. So again, be fully aware of proper equipment. Number 6, duty to instruct properly. Please use proper skill progression when you're teaching skills, drills, or activities related to the program you're coaching. In certain sports, this is imperative. 1, in football, proper tackling, technique. In gymnastics, proper Proper skill progression before a student athlete learns a dismount or learns an exercise on another event. Again, all sports have certain activities that can be inherently challenging or dangerous, so as a coach, make sure you're using proper skill progression before you move to a more advanced technique. 7, do you match athletes properly? Please make sure you're not matching the biggest against the smallest athletes in practice situations. 8, do you condition properly? Again, make sure you're utilizing a proper progression of conditioning. First day of practice is not a time to prove a point where you have athletes get on the line and run for an hour or a half hour or 5 miles. Again, use common sense approach to proper conditioning. Duty to warn. Again, as a coach, take the time to inform the student athletes in your program about any activity related to your sport that is inherently dangerous. Make sure you document in a practice plan when you went over that. You may want to video record you having that conversation with your student athletes. A perfect example is football tackling. As a staff, you may want to record the coach or coaches teaching proper tackling forms so that if questioned, you can revert back to your practice plan and or the video which shows you reminding the student athletes about the inherent dangers or the proper technique in any activity that is inherently danger. As a cross-country or track coach, another example is reminding your student athletes if they're running out in the neighborhood to stop and look both ways before they cross a street. Okay? There is no limit to this stuff as a coach, so any inherent dangerous activity in relation to your sport, remind your students about any of those particular dangers, document them in a practice plan and or record them for your own benefit. And again, as a rule of thumb regarding practice plans, as a coach you should have one for each and every day of practice. Put them in a binder, keep them on file for at least 4 years. That's just the advice we get from the legal classes I've taken regarding sports, legal issues in sport. So again, any questions on that, see me. Number 10, duty to ensure athletes are covered by insurance or injury. Again, parents know that they're responsible. Their insurance is primarily responsible for any accident. In the new area of concussions, the WIA has purchased additional concussion insurance to help pick up costs associated with those. So again, that's another great resource we have available to our student athletes. Number 11, duty to provide emergency care. Again, any paid coach has to have taken CPR, AED, and first aid training. All paid coaches must have that training. The school district provides it. Again, if you have any student athlete injured, reach out to your athletic trainers. They're another excellent resource to help make sure our student athletes are being kept safe. Again, if you have a student athlete injured, make sure that you've sent them in to see the trainer. If the trainer's not there, make sure the parent's fully aware of the injury. If you're on the road, make sure you or another coach on your staff has had a conversation with the trainer of the opposing team anytime you've had an injury to one of your student athletes. 12, duty to develop an emergency response plan. Again, we've got one. Keep it with you. Read it over. Know what you need to do in the event of emergency. 13, duty to provide proper transportation. Again, the school district provides transportation to most all athletic events. There are a few exceptions when we're within the city limits. And 14, duty to select, train, and supervise coaches. That falls on me in the athletic department. Again, as a coach, we encourage you to consider expanding your knowledge by attending different coaches clinics. Unfortunately, the district does not have the resources to reimburse you for that. However, if you have a camp account, that's an excellent tool for you to use to cover some of the costs associated with attending clinics such as registration and hotel. Another area I want to mention is on page 23 regarding open gyms and on the district's club sports policy. So again, please be aware that you are allowed to schedule open gyms for your sport. The district provides guidance that they shall start, no open gym shall start later than 7:30 p.m. or run later than 9 p.m. And be sure you familiarize yourselves with the WIAA rules regarding open gyms. One significant change in recent years is that coaches are allowed to recreate. However, instruction of any type is not allowed in open gyms. Also, regarding club sports, the district understands many students and parents participate in club sports outside of the high school season, so we created a policy to help guide them. For non-varsity athletes, if a student is on a JV or freshman high school team, students will be allowed to participate in club athletic programs during their JV or freshman high school season with the following stipulations. 1. The student and parents need to inform the coach about their intentions as soon as possible. And 2, students will not be allowed to miss a high school scheduled practice or competition for a club athletic practice or competition. Regarding varsity athletes, if a student is on a varsity high school team, the head coach will determine whether or not students will be allowed to practice or participate in a club athletic program during their varsity high school season. If a coach's position is no club athletic participation during the varsity high school season, it is based on the premise that a student's loyalty and allegiance should be to the high school team. Again, for varsity athletes, you have the final say. Please keep in mind you need to be consistent, and please communicate your beliefs or philosophy regarding to that to your parents and student athletes at the start of the season. Also, note the WIA rule concerning non-school participation on the bottom of page 23. It is the philosophy of the WIA that a student owes loyalty and allegiance to the school team of which he or she is a member during the season of a given sport. A student athlete with school approval is allowed to participate in up to 2 non-school contests during the regular season in the same sport in the same season. So again, the key there is prior school approval before they participate and up to 2. The 2 contests is based on how the contests in your particular sport are counted. As an example, if your sport allows 22 games, then a student would get 2 games. If your sport like wrestling or tennis counts 15 events, then a student would get 2 events, which on a particular day in a club sport like wrestling or tennis might be competing 6 or 7 times. So again, school approval is needed up front. Typically, if a student asks, we have them fill out a form. I'll go to you as a coach and say, are you okay with this or not? If you're okay with it, the school will be okay with it in almost all cases. If not, we'll support your decision. Another area you need to be familiar with is on page 32 and 33, which is the responsibilities and duties of all coaches. So whether you're a head coach or an assistant coach, please make sure you read those responsibilities and duties. On page 34 for head coaches, make sure you're fully aware of the responsibilities and duties of the head coach. And then all coaches should be familiar with the Coach's Code of Ethics on page 35 and 36. Again, be familiar with the Coach's Code of Ethics. Specifically, the coach must be aware that he or she has a tremendous influence, either good or bad, in the education of the student athlete, and thus shall never place the value of winning above the value of instilling the highest ideals of character. The coach must constantly uphold the honor and dignity of the profession in all personal contact with the student athlete, officials, athletic directors, school administrators, the high school state association, the media, and the public. The coach shall strive to set an example of the highest ethical and moral conduct. The coach will strive to model behavior expected of our student athletes as stated in the OASD Co-Curricular Handbook, which includes the use of profanity and unsportsmanlike conduct. The coach shall take an active role in the implementation of the OASD Athletic Code and under no circumstances, when learning of a violation, not report it. The coach shall promote the entire school's interscholastic athletic program and direct his or her program in harmony with the total school program. The coach shall be thoroughly acquainted with the contest rules and is responsible for the interpretation to team members. The spirit and letter of the rules shall be regarded as mutual agreements. The coach shall not try to seek an advantage by circumvention of the spirit of the rules. Again, you are the expert in your sport. As a coach, that's a paid coach or any coach, you are responsible and expected to know all of the district policies regarding your particular program, as well as the WIA rules and regulations for your sport, and all the WIA rules and regulations regarding being a member of the state association. The coach shall actively use his or her influence to enhance sportsmanship by spectators, working closely with booster clubs, spirit clubs, and administrators. On page 36, the coach shall respect contest officials. The coach shall not indulge in conduct which will incite players or spectators against contest officials. Public criticism of officials or players is unethical. Please keep that in mind, especially with all the social media uses today. The coach shall meet with rival coaches before and after the contest and exchange friendly greetings. The coach shall not exert pressure on faculty members to give student athletes special consideration. And the coach shall not scout opponents by any means other than those adopted by the FEA or WIAA. Next section I want to cover is the WIA rules at a glance. Again, this is probably the most helpful little cheat sheet for you as a coach to be familiar with some of the most important rules and regulations regarding the WIAA. Number one, coaches and coaching contact. Coaches may not have coaching contact with any athletes they will be coaching the following school season during restricted times, except their own children. There is no distinction between varsity and JV coaches. JV coaches cannot coach varsity athletes during restricted times and vice versa, nor any distinction between paid and non-paid and or volunteer coaches. An exception is that varsity and JV coaches can have coaching contact with students who have just completed 8th grade or any preceding 8th grade or any preceding grade up until these 8th graders actually start their 9th grade year. Furthermore, coaches may not, 1, mandate athletes participate in non-school competition or determine who may or may not participate in the non-school activity. 2, require involvement in out-of-season activities as part of the requirements for making a team, earning a letter award. 3, provide incentives such as t-shirts, etc. for participation in the off-season. It's another on flipping over to the back side of the high school rules at a glance. You'll see the information about open gyms under letter D. Please be familiar with that. On the next page, letter G, consecutive days of competition or practice. A team must take 1 day off from all physical activity after 6 consecutive days or practice and competition. Teams may schedule non-physical activities such as film review, scouting reports, rehab, etc. during this day off. So what that means is the calendar week goes Sunday to Saturday. So your day off will stay the same each and every week from that Sunday to Saturday unless you take 2 days off in a particular week. So after 6 consecutive days of practice or competition from a Sunday to Saturday, you must have a day off. On the last page of the rules at a glance, there's information about amateur status. A student may not accept, receive, or direct to another reimbursement in any form of salary, cash, or share of game or season proceeds for athletic accomplishments, such as being on a winning team, being selected for the varsity team, or being a place winner in an individual tournament. A student may receive school mementos valued not more than $200, an award not valued more than $100 retail, and may retain non-school competition apparel worn by the student as part of the team uniform. Further rules prevent athletes from receiving compensation or benefit directly or indirectly for the use of name, picture, and or personal appearance as an athlete because of ability, potential, and or performance as an athlete. Athletes may not receive free or reduced rates on equipment, apparel, camps, clinics, instructions, and the competitive opportunities that are not identical for any and all interested students, meaning students must pay 100% of the cost to attend a camp or private instruction. 2, a student cannot receive a reduced rate on items such as shoes, equipment, etc. that's not available to any other high school student, meaning I can't get 20% off my shoes if that same 20% discount isn't available to any high school student. D, the non-school participation language, which was mentioned a little bit. WA rules do not prevent athletes from practicing with non-school teams or from receiving private instruction during the school season. Rules indicate athletes may not participate in more than 2 non-school competitions during the school season in the same respective sport with prior school approval. Non-school competitions include races, scrimmages against other teams, normal non-school games, gimmicks such as reduced number competition, fun runs, etc. During the season, athletes may participate in a skills contest with approval of the school. There can be no school coach involvement. And all other eligibility rules, including amateur status, apply to non-school competition. Additionally, a student who is a member of a school team during the previous year may not delay reporting for the school team beyond the school's opening day of practice in order to continue non-school training or competition. So please be sure your athletes are aware of that. There's also information about all-star contests. So athletes with remaining high school eligibility may not participate in all-star contests. During the school year, a school, including its administrators, athletic director, and coaches, shall not become involved directly or indirectly with any kind of all-star or similar contest that involves students with remaining eligibility. So again, please take the time to familiarize yourself with the WIAA rules at a glance. The next section in the Coach's Handbook is the WIAA High School Athletic Eligibility Bulletin. This is shared and included in the OASD Co-Curricular Handbook. So again, please take time to familiarize yourself with all of the information found within the High School Athletic Eligibility Information Bulletin. If you have a question about anything at all regarding the WIAA or school district policy or rules or regulations, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Regarding the High School Athletic Eligibility Information Bulletin, on the second page, something to be aware of is the transfer section. So a full-time student may be afforded up to 8 consecutive semesters of eligibility upon entry into grade 9. Transferring schools at any time may result in restrictions being imposed on eligibility, or in some cases, a denial of eligibility. For the purpose of this rule, attendance at one day of school and or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of the school year. So students entering 11th grade so any transfer student that enters basically 11th grade is going to be restricted to non-varsity opportunities unless there is a necessitated change in parent residence. So if you have a transfer student, assume they are ineligible to participate until cleared by the athletic office. There are some exceptions when students are 9th and or 10th grade, if they've transferred into an open enrollment, or again, if a family has a necessitated move, in many cases there's unrestricted eligibility. But please keep that in mind. Transfers, when in doubt, if you have a transfer, please be sure to follow up with me so that we can make sure we are aware of that transfer and have done all the proper steps to make sure they are eligible. Again, I talked about amateur status, which is on the third page of the information bulletin. Please be aware of items A, B, C, D, E, and F. I talked a little bit about those before. Also the sports activities outside the season. That information was covered a little bit in the non-school training program. So again, this is a great resource for our student athletes and parents as well as you as a coach. The next section in the handbook is the WIAA Performance Enhancing and Banned Substance List. So on the first page, please note, banned substances students cannot use. Possession and or use violates the WIAA Code of Conduct. The only exception is if a student is taking an item that's been legally prescribed by a doctor, that is not considered a violation. Discouraged supplements or performance enhancing or banned items. Schools and coaches may not provide or allow discouraged items in connection to a school's program. Possession and or use may violate school district policy or code. Again, these are discouraged and we're not allowed to provide or encourage use of these in any way, shape, or form with our programs. Again, students should be careful about anything they put in their body or consume or take. They need to make sure that what they're taking is not on the banned or discouraged WIAA list. When in doubt, have them refer to the list or see me with any specific questions. The next section in the handbook is just some real quick, brief document from the WIAA for coaches to help protect the eligibility of our student athletes. So please take a minute to read that. And on the back side, there's another WIAA eligibility overview sheet that we provide to parents and student athletes. After those items, you'll find information about the school district's fundraising policies. Please familiarize yourself with policy 5830 regarding student fundraising. Note on the back of that, there is a form that should be filled out prior to any fundraiser taking place. Please be sure to check whether or not the food, or if there's food being used, is it a compliant food or not, and then check the boxes regarding the 4 questions below. And once done, please provide that form to me so that I can sign it and get it into the district office. In the event that you would be exposed to blood or bodily fluids, as a coach, there is a report that you should fill out immediately and turn in. So please be aware of that in your particular sport. It may be a very real possibility you're exposed to blood or bodily fluids. It may be a very remote chance. In either case, you need to protect yourself to make sure that in the event that you happen to be exposed, you follow this checklist and turn the report in. On the back side of that, there is a staff post-exposure checklist as well. So again, this is to make sure that you are being kept as safe as possible in regards to ever being exposed to blood or other bodily fluids. Exhibit 378A is the non-use of school-provided transportation form. Previously for me, you've got an email regarding the district's policy on student transportation, meaning when students travel to an event, the only way a student can be dismissed to go home after an event contest is if the parent is there, parent and or legal guardian in person. They come up and ask you in person, also sign off on this form, and you provide them permission. It must be the parent and legal guardian only. A brother, sister, grandparent, aunt or uncle, neighbor are not allowed to take a student. Also, it will be the student and the student only that they can transport. They can't take a friend or neighbor, even if that friend or neighbor has contacted us and given the school permission. A parent or legal guardian can take their child and their child only. Please make copies of these forms, keep them with you, and turn them into me in the office on a regular basis. The next item found in the handbook is information from the CDC and the DPI regarding concussion. Concussions. A concussion is a brain injury. All concussions are serious. Most concussions occur without loss of consciousness. Concussions can occur in any sport. Recognition and proper management of concussions when they first occur can help prevent further injury or even death. So, the state law in Wisconsin says that you must be provided with concussion information, which you have been. You need to sign and turn in that concussion acknowledgement form for any coach, whether paid or unpaid. And the mantra we use as a coach is, when in doubt, that you have if a student athlete has a concussion, you sit them out. So when in doubt, hold them out. So recognizing a possible concussion, it could be a forceful blow to the head or body that can result in a rapid movement of the head and any change in the athlete's behavior, judgment, or physical functioning. Look at and be familiar with the signs and symptoms that may be observed by the coaching staff or reported by the athlete. Do you observe the athlete to be dazed or stunned? Are they confused about their assignment or position? Have they forgotten plays? Are they unsure of game score of the opponent? Do they move clumsily? Do they answer questions slowly? Have they lost consciousness, even briefly? Do they show behavior or personality changes? Do they not recall events prior to being hit or the fall? Or they can't recall events after the hit or fall? Those are signs of a possible concussion that you should be looking for as a coach. Athletes might report the following to you: headache or pressure in the head, nausea or vomiting, balance problems or dizziness, double or blurry vision, sensitivity to light, sensitivity to noise, feeling sluggish, hazy, foggy, or groggy, concentration or memory problems, confusion, or they just don't feel right. In those particular cases, by law, you're required to hold the athlete out due to possible concussion. So, when in doubt, hold the athlete out. So, as a coach, you play a key role in preventing concussions and responding to them properly when they occur. Here are some steps that you can help take to ensure the best outcome for your athletes and the team. Educate athletes and parents about concussions. We provide them with a wealth of information and resources. One insists safety comes first. Make sure they know they must report any concussions. We also do the impact testing in a number of our sports. Okay? Teach athletes and parents that it's not smart to play with a concussion. So an action plan. What should you do as a coach when a concussion is suspected? 1, remove the athlete from play immediately. 2, ensure the athlete is evaluated by a trained healthcare provider. preferably one of our athletic trainers if at all possible. 3, inform the athlete's parents or guardians about the possible concussion. And 4, an athlete who has been removed from any youth activity because of a determined or suspected concussion may not participate again until he or she is evaluated by a healthcare provider, is symptom-free, and provides written clearance from a healthcare provider to return to activity. Also, that student will come back on a return to play protocol. They will not return to practice at 100% if they've been diagnosed with a concussion. So again, safety first. When in doubt, hold the athlete out. There's also a document on the back side there called Concussions in School Performance. Basically what we tell students and parents is if an athlete has a concussion, they're going to need extra time in the classroom, and as such, we will take steps to help them get back to their academic performance as soon as possible with modifications. We've also included a parent's guide or guardian's guide to concussion as well. This is the same document the parents get. We thought it'd be important for you to have it as well so you're completely familiar with what the parents and student athletes are receiving. The next section is in regard to hazing. The National Federation of High Schools defines hazing as any humiliating or dangerous activity expected of a student to belong to a group regardless of their willingness to participate. Hazing, bullying activities will not be tolerated at Oshkosh West, and in many cases they are illegal. So as a coach, you're at the forefront of instilling the importance of not allowing these types of behaviors to take place in our programs. So have conversations with your captains and all members of your team, reiterating that hazing and bullying is not acceptable and will not be tolerated at school. Please keep this at the forefront throughout your season. Remind your students athletes of this at the midpoints and end of your season or any other time that you feel is appropriate. Make sure any situation at all that you feel that comes about or that you're made aware of is reported to me in the athletic office or another school administrator so it can be properly investigated. Okay? So again, please look at the recognizing hazing. Look for the signs and keys that may indicate a problem. So again, hazing and bullying is not going to be tolerated, and in many cases those behaviors are illegal. We do not want to be a school that's on the news, whether it be local or national level, about hazing or bullying incidents that have taken place. They are extremely difficult to deal with. They will encompass a large amount of our time, and in the end it'll be a black eye on our program and school, and we need to keep student athlete safety first and foremost. Ways to prevent it from happening is number one, never leave kids unsupervised. Number two, on bus trips, do periodic checks of walking up and down from the front to the back of the bus so the kids know you can be checking it at any time. 3, make sure athletes don't hang around before practice in areas where they're unsupervised and or after, and be available in the locker room. Be attuned to how the kids are talking about other students and what they're saying about other students. Okay? So again, thank you for all of your help in ensuring that hazing and bullying has no place at Oshkosh West High School. The next section of the handbook deals with a policy for managing heat and humidity. It talks about when the heat index is below certain temperatures or above. Again, this may not happen at all during the course of the school year. It could happen a couple of times. We need to be prepared and follow these guidelines so that we're keeping student athletes' safety priority number one. If it's extremely hot, make sure student athletes are given adequate breaks out of the heat as well as water breaks. There's also a position statement and recommendations for maintaining hydration to optimize performance and minimize the risk for heat illness from the National Federation of High Schools. And please keep in mind that our athletic trainers are excellent resources to help with those requests. The last section of the handbook is the role of parent in sports. We include for parents to help them get a better understanding about what part they play and how important they are in participating in our athletic programs. We encourage them to take the self-assessment and then to see how they score, and depending on where they score, see if there are additional resources that might be beneficial to them in regards to being a positive promoter of our athletic programs. So those are some of the resources found within the Coach's Handbook. Again, on the back of the handbook cover, there's information for different websites that are extremely important. The FoxValleyAssociation.org website is one that you should bookmark. Sign up for the Notify Me section so you can get immediate notification of any cancellation or changes to your schedule. FoxValleyAssociation.org is a great website for our conference where you can get lots of information regarding results, stories about student athletes of all the programs in our conference that we have, and that's feasports.net. And I encourage you to follow me on Twitter at OWHS Activities. Other topics that you're going to be familiar of and either have or will receive emails from me about concerning during the course of the season. You'll get your WIAA season and tournament regulations in an email, a copy of your schedules along with the WIAA season maximums document. Please double check the amount or the number of schedules that are on your schedule or contests on your schedule to make sure I have not scheduled too many, because having too many puts us ineligible for the WIAA tournament series. All coaches, whether paid or volunteer, must complete 2 WIAA rules exams. One is regarding the rules of for the sport. The other is a sport video with a series of questions about it. So I'll need an email address for all coaches, paid or unpaid, because they'll have to take the sport video and rules exam. Please email me your transportation requests. We no longer have you fill out a form. You email me the documents, or email me the information. I'll schedule the buses for you and check those on a daily basis. Also, if you have any student with a disability that wants to participate in your program, please make me aware of that, because we need to make sure we're not discriminating against that student in any particular case. We may have to make modifications. We may need to provide you with some additional resources, but we are very inclusive here at Oshkosh West and encourage all students to participate in our programs. So if we have a student with a disability, we want to make sure we're helping you provide the best possible resources to give that student athlete a quality experience. And any volunteer coach that you have needs to go through a background check, needs to complete the rules and sport exams with the WIAA, and will have to complete some additional training just like we do as full-time coaches or full-time employees of the district. So please get me those names of volunteer coaches and email addresses as soon as possible. Regarding student-athlete practice clearance, basically, if the student-athlete does not get cleared by the athletic department, they're not allowed to start practice. There are a number of resources they need to turn in. It is not your responsibility to collect them. It is their responsibility as a student-athlete and parent to turn them in to me in the athletic office. They'll have to have a physical on file that's valid, possibly an alternate year card, signed athlete and parent agreement of parent and athlete form, the concussion acknowledgement form, possible impact testing document, and we provide them with some additional resources from Ascension regarding athletic training program and concussions. So all of those forms are provided by me in the athletic office, so no student is cleared to participate in practice and or competitions until you've been notified by me in the athletic office that they're good to go. As I mentioned, all transfers should be referred to me so that I make sure they're eligible to begin to practice and compete. If you have any foreign exchange students, please make sure that you've gotten proper clearance from me in the athletic office, again, to be able to begin practice and compete in any contest. All of you should or will be emailed FEA sport codes for your sports. Again, please make sure you save a copy of that on your computer and be aware of all the rules and regulations in the Fox Valley Association that apply to your particular program. I will be emailing you a roster that was used last year on the form we used. You'll be asked to update the roster, save it to your computer, and then email it back to me as an attachment so that we can provide it to our opponents throughout the course of your seasons. Finally, head coaches, if you have officials that are required for your competitions, the WIAA is going to ask that you evaluate those officials objectively in your particular program. Again, please be objective and turn those in a timely manner. As far as some other topic reminders, 1, Wednesday practice end times. All practices must end by 6 p.m. on Wednesdays, period. Anytime a student athlete has to be dismissed or mispracticed for a religious conflict, they are to be excused with no consequence, no exceptions to this. So please keep that in mind. All practices must end by 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. All paid coaches must be CPR, AED, and first aid certified. The district will provide the training. It is typically a 2-year certification. So if you know you're going to need to be recertified, let me know immediately. Some required district trainings of all coaches, whether they're full-time district employees or non-staff coaches. We will all need to complete the State of Wisconsin Child Abuse and Neglect Training, the district's bloodborne pathogen training and quiz, and the state's mandatory reporting of threats of school violence. Some other reminders. 1, you schedule your year-end awards program at the best time or date for your particular program. I'll get your award information near the end of the year. Please get it back to me as soon as possible. Booster Club Sport Rep. Each head coach should have a Booster Club Sport Rep for your program. Also, please remember with the late start and end times for the school day, specifically late end times, depending on your program, students may miss a number of classes repeatedly during the course of the season. Please remind your student athletes to work with their teachers on early dismissals, to be proactive so that they can make their teacher aware of their situation and do as much as possible to get any work made up beforehand or get extensions on getting work made up once they get back to class after missing. So, some reminders here for coaches. 1, all coaches must turn in a signed concussion and acknowledgement form. 2, all paid coaches must turn in a signed coaches video form that was provided to you at the coaches meeting, beginning of the season, or in your coaches packet. 3, all paid coaches must turn in a signed coaches acknowledgement of receiving the district's coaches handbook. And again, please read the information found on that form. Also, coaches, please review the expectations for Oshkosh West student athletes, parents, coaches, and administrators found on the coaches video form. Again, those are expectations we have for student athletes and parents. There are expectations that administration has for coaches, and there are expectations that you as coaches can expect from us as administrators. A couple of final reminders. Number 1, anytime you have a roster change to your program, it's imperative that you let me know of any student athlete that has dropped from your program, but specifically any student athlete who wants to join after the season has started. We need to make sure that every student that is joined or wants to join has been cleared to begin practice and competition. I can't emphasize this enough. Please, if a new student shows up and wants to join, make sure you've gotten notification from me that they are cleared to begin to practice. 2, coaches, please be sure to live the Oshkosh West vision statement, core values, and Wildcat Creed. Work with your athletes to create goals for your program. We utilize the Bigger, Faster, Stronger goal setting form. It's a real short, very easy tool to use where we get student athlete buy into the programs and your goals. This is important because in the event a parent has a question about anything, you will be able to maybe lean on that document to say, yep, it might not have been what your child wanted or the first thing that was best for them, but 2, this is what the team agreed upon and what we all wanted as a priority or goal for the program. We're asking all coaches to follow a common weight training program. The expectation is during your season, the students will be lifting weights. Outside the season, we strongly encourage them to, even though we can't require them to, we hope that they will continue their weight training outside of the season. One of the best ways to do that is with the FIAD strength and conditioning class. 2, with the expansion of our increased athletic trainer coverage. We're hopeful to provide coaches with some additional options during their season, maybe before the school day. More to come on that. Also, we're asking you to utilize the Bigger, Faster, Stronger Being 11 concepts and curriculum. A file either has been shared with you or will be shared with you at the beginning of your season that contains lessons regarding our core values from the Bigger, Faster, Stronger Being 11 program. Please feel free to add anything to these lessons that you feel, or this folder that you feel will help your fellow colleagues, teach some of these valuable core lessons to our student athletes. Again, it takes us all working together to achieve great things. Again, please reminder, we all want to be supportive of each other. As an administration, we value everything you do as a coach. We know coaching is a year-round commitment. We know the stress and pressures that come with it and the small amount of pay that is received, but we can't thank you enough for your sacrifice and commitment. 2, when there are challenges, we all need to work together to overcome those challenges. We will let you do your job, and the only time we'll intervene is if there's a reason that we have to. Please remember, everything you say and do is scrutinized, so please remember to always be representing yourself, your program, and the school in a positive manner. Once you say something verbally or post something on social media, you can't take it back. Someone's going to have heard it or seen it, and then that's when things can become complicated. So please keep that in mind. And 3, a reminder, we want to encourage multiple sport participation here at Oshkosh West. We all want to have the most talented kids that we can, and ideally that means we're willing to share. So we have a multiple sport philosophy here. We have our 4-year 3-sport athlete wall. Please consider sharing your athletes with the other programs that we have by letting your athletes know when they're not in your season, they should really consider getting involved in another program. And if they're not doing that, encourage them to stay physically fit by continuing off-season training to keep them at a peak level so that the next time they participate, they're ready to go. So again, in closing, thank you for coaching here at Oshkosh West High School. We greatly appreciate it. Appreciate what you do for the school, the athletic department, and our student athletes and parents. Best of luck to you this school year. And if there are questions at all about anything, please don't hesitate to ask. We are here to help. Take care. Go Wildcats.